everyone. I'm Samantha Osei. I'm a writer, and today we are here talking about the book How the what is it called again? How I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon.
I think it's That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's right. That time I got drunk and saved a demon. I don't have it in front of me, which is kind of silly, but
Pull it up.
yeah. So she's gonna pull up the cover. This is Melissa Peters, my writing buddy friend. And you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'll pause and I'll pull it up in a minute because I was using the wrong mouse.
Oh,
My name's Melissa Peters. I am the author of a cozy horror novel called Salvation Hills, House on Highland Road. Yeah, and
okay.
I like
Cool.
horror.
You like horror. So, for those of you who are joining us today, if you have any comments, please go ahead and put them in the comments box, or anyone afterwards. Let us know what you thought of this book if you've read it. For those of you who may be looking at whether or not you want to read it, a few things. Let me go over a quick summary of it. I do have this written out so I don't forget. But we have a main character named Cinnamon, who discovers that the goddess that is protecting her town or village from demons is, in fact, not a goddess at all, but a lich, which is an undead spellcaster. Now, this lich, Myra, put a spell on demons to attack humans, thus creating a false enemy that they needed to be protected from. So through certain ways that I won't get into and means, she ends up pairing up with a demon named Fallon to destroy the goddess. Well, that's very different than mine.
Oh, that's the one I had.
Interesting. So anyway, so she pairs up with a demon named Fallon to destroy the goddess's magic and really revealing the whole sham to the rest of humanity and the world. So now, a bit of some, I guess, disclaimers, caveats, whatnot. I selected this because it's completely out of my realm of what I normally read. I selected thinking it would be funny, quick read. However, when I did select it, I also knew that by the title and the the blurb and everything, it was not really me or something that I may not enjoy. So, with that idea or understanding, so there are going to be some things that I myself probably will say that I'm not fond of, but many others who enjoy this type of reading will. So again, it's just my opinion, positive or negative. Now, also for those of you who are interested in reading this, some warnings ahead of time. She does have a few warnings in the beginning of the book, but just so you're well aware, there is a lot of alcohol use in this book, and it's not like minimal in the drinking. It's heavy and it's throughout, to the point of blackout drunk. I know some people might be triggered from that. So want to give that. And then there are several intimate scenes that I myself thought were extra spicy. And that's also not something that I enjoy reading, but I know a lot of others are really, they either have no opinion about them or they really enjoy it. So those were kind of my warnings. Melissa, is there anything else that you can think of that people might want to know about it before getting into it that might cause? There's violence also. I think most fantasy has violence in it, though, of some sort.
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start going through some of the questions that we normally ask on these book talks. First one is, did you like the book? And I'll answer that first. So as I said, this is not the type of book I normally pick up. And because of that, it wasn't an enjoyable read for me. I liked the premise, um, and the whole kind of idea about this goddess who had fooled humanity through spell casting, etc., and you know, having to go and fight that goddess or lich in this particular um, instance. But outside of that, the way it was presented was not something that I enjoyed. So, Melissa?
It was also not something that I typically read, so it wasn't my favorite book, but it does have a lot of good review. Well, it has lots of high reviews on Goodreads, and it's been read a ton of times. So
Right.
it is something that people out there like. It was on my TBR to be read before Samantha picked it, um, but I had forgotten I bought it. I think it was when I was scrolling TikTok a few years ago, and somebody said it was really good, so I picked it up, but I hadn't gone back that far in my Kindle reads until Samantha said something about it. I was like, wait, I have this book. So
No.
I was happy to check my one book off my TBR.
Right. Exactly. So, kind of moving forward, and again, this is not what we typically read. So, we're not really qualified in saying whether this is a great book or not a great book, um, as far as like conventional standards or the genre in itself that it goes into. But, we'll talk a little bit about what we thought about it and kind of go from there. So,
Bailey popped on too.
oh, well, hi, Bailey. Did you realize this was a book talk? Are you going to listen to us while you work? Probably. um, so, did you have a favorite part or a part that you felt was more interesting than others? How about that?
When you reminded me about the blackout drunk part, I did actually laugh at that part. Um, and I also liked when the demon that she first interacts with, demon being a supernatural being in this case, when we see his true nature.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Um, I wasn't expecting that, and I enjoyed that.
She's being cryptic. So it's not to.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything.
Aha. Yes, I thought that was pretty cool as well. Um, and one thing is that the author did put a lot of supernatural beings in there. So, you know, werewolves and orcs and whatnot. So you did get a lot of kind of a typical fantastical world with those kinds of beings involved, which is kind of cool to mix them all up, and have like this party of beings that would maybe not necessarily work together to do something. But if everyone has a common enemy, then they go and fight that enemy. So whether they like each other or not. So I guess that was a unique aspect to this book that I hadn't seen in maybe some others. So did you have a favorite character or
Well, I don't want to steal your answer because I know who you're going to say. Um, but I thought the mother was intriguing with her history.
Mhm.
I would have liked to know more about that. Um, and maybe it's built on because I believe this book turns into a series. But then I think Asha was
Yeah.
the one of the innkeepers with the hyena.
Yeah, I think she was interesting as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Usha. My favorite character has to be the horse, though, Smash, um, for a few different reasons, but it's it's just like this stubborn horse that just wants what it wants, and you don't, there's no talk. All it does is like kick people. It's just, but always at the right time, and it's always very protective of Cinnamon. So it's, pretty cool in that sense. And I don't know, I just kind of thought that was a unique way of utilizing a horse, to kind of build and make a character out of it, and yet not have it be so much as like the other characters. So I thought that was kind of cool. Did the ending resolve all your questions, or were there some things left unanswered or unfinished?
I don't think it resolved all my questions. There was the history around Cinnamon's mother, and then the death of her sister. Like both of those are kind of alluded to, but I don't feel like they were answered.
Yeah. That's something that we had talked about before coming on, that, as we were kind of going through these questions, and I felt the same way, that, and it may have more in the following, because there are right now 3 additional books in the series. So there may be something in there that will help us, would help understand those 2 unanswered questions.
Mhm.
So, and as I just said, there is a series. So if you read this and you enjoy it, then you can then quickly grab the next one. So let's look a little bit at this plot. Basically, we have the main character going on an adventure. Do you have any thoughts on this book structure, the flow of events? Did it help the story flow? What's your thought on that?
Um, we were talking before. I feel like the plot followed the traditional adventure plot, but I felt it was rushed. Like there was some things that I would have liked to have seen more in depth, and then other things that were maybe almost a bit too in depth. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
unbalanced, maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think, the book is about 260 pages on my Kindle. And for a whole fantasy world, that is pretty small for a fantasy book to be able to get into, the world building like most fantasy readers like. So that's something to consider for those who may be interested in reading this. Is that you're not going to get the same kind of depth as you would, another fantasy author, that writes larger books and kind of delves into that world a bit more. Um, and but I do think that it did follow those genre conventions of the heroic journey, or in this case, I guess both hero and heroine with, Fallon as well. So, um, and all the traditional conventions that come with it. But I agree. I think it would have helped to add a bit more of that world building to bring us kind of deeper into the story and that background. So it served the story, but it could have done a little bit more. Give us a little bit more.
Mhm.
And you were able to follow along. Did anything go awry as you were reading? I followed along pretty well.
Yeah, me too.
So, and anything surprise you? Plot twists you didn't expect?
I didn't. I thought he was just a demon, Fallon. I didn't expect his second nature. So that was kind of interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. I was, this is at the very beginning of the book, so I'm going to spoil it. But
Mhm.
um, the farm is a cinnamon farm that well, she has fields of cinnamon, her family does. And so I was kind of surprised that cinnamon would be the thing that broke the spell with demons. Because I would think cinnamon is a fairly popular spice, you know. So for them not to know that, and later in the book we have demons who are actually being, I guess, held as slaves essentially in a typical village, which I would think they would have cinnamon there also. So that it's kind of a cool surprise, yet on a practical, it seems a little strange also, that they wouldn't have figured that one out a while ago. Um, Kind of looking at characters, right? We have, um, other than the characters that we already talked about with Usha and Smash, did anyone else stand out to you? Oh, and the mother. That's right, we already talked.
Yeah, the mother. I liked her family. Like they were very loving and protective of each other. A lot of sibling
Mm-hmm. Very
joking and rivalry.
right.
And Felix, a werewolf she meets later on. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not intriguing, but I mean, I like the typical werewolf trope. So
Yeah, I like werewolf. I'm a werewolf fan for sure as well. Yeah, I think yeah, Felix was the other one I was gonna mention, and he's the werewolf. So he's got
sorry, I stole it.
yeah, he claims to be the main character's best friend. So you know. Um let's see here. Can you relate to any of the characters?
I, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, at the
I was
beginning when she's hanging out with her friend Bree, like, I mean, I'm not usually that smashed with my friend, but me and my bestie are kind of like that. Like,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, enjoying each other's company and whatnot and hanging out.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that that's one of the reasons why it was hard for me to enjoy the book as much as maybe other people, because characterization is very important to me and being able to connect to the character. And I don't drink. So that right there kind of puts me not at odds, but in a different category than the character in and of itself. So trying to have that connection, and then, I don't know anything about spice farming, so I don't have that connection. And, you know, although I do love cheese. So there we go.
Are you the queen of cheese?
I might be the queen of cheese. So, yeah, but for me, it was really hard to relate. So, and that helps me get, more closer to the character, and then more in depth with the story. So I think for me, that was one of the key missing ingredients for me on this particular book. So, um, and you already said that if any character you wanted to know more about, it would be the mother. So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
had an interesting backstory that we didn't get much of. And maybe that's in later um,
Hmm.
books, but it's definitely something that was tantalizing. It was kind of a teaser, like, hey,
Hmm.
that'd be kind of cool to know about.
And it's weird that Cinnamon didn't seem to know much. Like, she heard her mother's stories, but I believe she felt surprised when she found out her mother was a bard, and that was like right at the beginning, so it's not a spoiler. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, so I
Right.
would have liked to know more there. Like, yeah.
Right. And the bard, basically what they do is they sing stories. So you would imagine growing up, she would be singing all these stories unless she stopped being like her own true nature of a bard.
Hmm.
When, or if perhaps the goddess's spell, maybe that also had something to do with it. Like they didn't talk about it for some reason. Yeah. I don't know. Unanswered questions. So
Hmm.
now let's look at the setting. It was in this other world, this other village, and I don't remember what.
Boo,
Boo Hale. That's
boo
right.
hail. I was gonna say boo yeah, but that's not right.
Boo yeah,
Boo
is
hail.
different. Yeah, Boo Hale. And then there were four other areas in the world that they went to on this quest. Um, I think we pretty much already discussed that. I think she had kind of a good surface level of setting, but because it wasn't as well developed due to the length of the book, that, from a fantasy reader, you just don't get into the setting as much. The setting can be really used very well as an extra character, and I didn't really see that come to life as much as maybe in some other books that I've read.
Mhm. I was a huge lover of Tolkien when I was a kid. Like I would read the
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings trilogy every Christmas over at Christmas holidays. And it was my favorite thing to literally read every word. Like quite often when you're reading, you find yourself like you skim the page and you know what's happening, but you don't really read every word. And I
Mhm.
read every single line because I loved how Tolkien described like
Mm.
the leaves on the trees.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Mhm.
And Tolkien made Middle Earth a character of its own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Tolkien's on a different level than like the majority of authors. So
True. And most people I think find the books actually kind of boring, but
yeah, you have to be in a really interesting space. You have to be in, where you're. I don't know what the best way of saying that is, but you definitely need to be in the right frame of mind. I mean, I would say the same thing about Nathaniel Hawthorne, um, but like the House of Seven Gables, which is literally description of seven gables on a house, at least as far as all I could remember, because that's all it felt like was in that book.
I haven't read it, so I can't say.
And yeah, but I also read it when I was like 14 and I was pretty bored out of my mind. So um, I'm sure I would have a different take on it these days, but maybe not. So, but setting can be so important. And this was definitely focused on the dramatic action.
Mhm.
There, you know, character arc, there didn't really seem to be a character arc too much. Um, there, I mean, there was a little bit. So, but
Yeah,
it,
she got over her prejudice towards, well, I guess it's not a spoiler. Look at the cover. She got
right,
over her prejudice towards demons. So,
right. So,
unless he's kidnapping her in this picture,
right. Which may be. So,
I don't know that I'd caress the cheek of my kidnapper though. So,
well, yeah, you have a point. This is such a different cover than mine. It's hilarious.
I did see the other cover when I pulled it up, but this is the one that's with my Kindle, probably because
Mhm.
I bought it several years ago,
Right.
2 years ago. So I just pulled this one up because this is the one I'm sure I've I've read.
Well, that's pretty much all that we had about this particular book. I know that there are definitely some people that will really enjoy this, and um, so if this is the type of book that you like, please, feel free to go purchase it and support the author. Like I said, some it just wasn't for me, and that's okay. Not everything's going to be for everybody. So, you have any last remarks, Melissa?
No, I should have had our next book ready, but we'll be reading. I just purchased it. Let me look up the author name again.
Is it C.S.
It's
Grayson?
Beauty and the Blade
Oh,
by C.S.
S.C.
Grayson, I think, or
S.C.
S.C. Grayson.
S.C. Grayson. Yes, S.C.
Yeah,
Grayson. Here we go. Blasphemy. Saying the wrong name.
So,
Author.
yeah.
So
So we will have that posted shortly. It will be happening on my channel the last Tuesday of
April,
April.
right? Which is,
Um,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but
no, I can't either. And once again, it is fantasy, um, but we'll see how it goes.
yeah. And we will be back on next Tuesday with our conscious action towards success productivity sprint. So if you want to come back, then we will be on at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you all soon.
Bye, Bailey.